Je vous présente Alhaji TV Media Group, disponible en téléchargement sur App Store et Play Store. Une fois ouverte, vous pouvez vous abonner en cliquant sur Inscription et recevoir toutes les notifications par rapport à nos activités. Ou bien, cliquez sur Passer pour accéder directement à l'interface de l'application qui regroupe 4 chaînes de télévision et une radio, dont Alhaji TV, Alhaji TV Religion, Alhaji TV Media, Alhaji TV Music et la radio. Alhaji TV Media, chez vous et pour vous.
yéen ñiy wër café Touba bu weex te sell neex café agsi na. neex café di café bu ñu defaree fii ci Italie neex na te sell na képp ku ko yittewoo na woote ci 391 72 69 337 jërëjëf.
Hello, welcome back on Interface Gambia TV. I'm your presenter Lamin Jami of the Jollof Show. Today, indeed, a great pleasure again to come and talk about the late President Dawda Kairaba JAWARA, who passed away suddenly last month. Indeed, the Gambian people, of course, the Gambian living in the diaspora and, of course, back home, and Africa as a whole is still mourning the death of the founding father of Gambian democracy. With me today, I've got Foday Saikouba Jarjuesey, who has served as a permanent secretary at Works and Communication Department and various departments during the President JAWARA time. And of course, I've got the ADC of former President, His Excellency, the late President JAWARA, Mr. Mamadou Lamin Gassama, who has served his term as an ADC to President JAWARA until he was ousted in that coup d'etat in 1994. Mr. Foday Saikouba Jarjuesey, sir, welcome to Interface Gambia TV and of course the Jollof Show, sir. Welcome to Interface. I'll leave you to say hello to the viewers of Interface.
Hello, I hope you can hear me, and I'm very grateful for Interface Gambia to give me this opportunity to come here once again. I was with them at the event on 15th of September, last Sunday. Unfortunately, I couldn't go through my statement, my eulogy to Sir Dawda because of time constraints. And I'm glad and very grateful for them to give me this opportunity to come and deliver this statement properly and fully now, as well as have discussions and answer any questions they may wish to ask. So this is my tribute, eulogy to Sir Dawda Kairaba Jarjuesey, first President of the Republic of the Gambia. The event previously was held at Forest Gate in London. But as I said, my statement was not even 1/4 way complete.
No, the reason, sir, that was because of the time frame. But we will talk about the statement today because we will give you lengthy time to talk about the statement and the tribute you have for the founding father of the Gambian democracy.
Now I will go through my statement.
Okay.
Thank you very much. It was with profound shock and sadness that I learned the passing of His Excellency Sir Dawda Kairaba Jarjuesey, first President of the Republic of the Gambia, which occurred on Tuesday, 27 August 2019. Already, countless column inches have been written about Sir Dawda and continue to be written. Also, countless words have been said by so many, ranging from family, friends, colleagues, and international figures, whilst debates, discussions, and commentaries continue to dominate the multitude of media channels, including social media. Thus, obviously, we've had Sir Dawda's family background, early life, education, and the rest covered by and from many sources. Even now, and more importantly, we are still hearing from some of those who have worked very closely for and with him. I'm proud to count myself as one. The relationship developed steadily beyond the workplace to an everlasting personal and family affair. I've lost a father, colleague, and a friend all in one. So when Mama Lady Chilel called at the time to inform my wife Umi and I of this event and to attend and say something, I took it not only as an instruction but as a matter of duty, the tallest order. Unfortunately, however, Umi is unable to be here with us today due to unavoidable circumstances, but she sends her best wishes for success, together with her brother Wande and our daughter Fanta. I also wish to extend condolences to the entire Jawara family, wherever they are, on behalf of the Jarjuesey family. I now have the privilege, the singular honor and privilege to oblige. When I joined the Gambia Civil Service in 1976, Sir Dawda was already President of the Republic. I was among others sent for further studies to return home and help in the development of a newly independent country. I returned home and joined the Civil Service in 1976. Between 1976 and 1977, I served for very short periods at the following ministries: Local Government and Lands, Agriculture and Natural Resources, Works and Communications, and Education, Youth, Sports and Culture. I was posted to the Office of the President in 1977, where I remained for 11.5 years, rising steadily but surely from Assistant Secretary, Senior Assistant Secretary, Under Secretary, Deputy Permanent Secretary, to the position of Permanent Secretary. To the position of Permanent Secretary. Ministry of Works and Communications. Yes. In 1988. Right. If I would just want to interrupt you there quickly, because this is quite interesting, sir, and I'm sure the viewers will really want to hear everything you've got written there. But let me just bring in Mr. Gassama, who served as the former ADC to the President. Mr. Gassama, please take the opportunity to say hello to the viewers of Interface Gambia.
Hello to all the viewers of Interface Gambia. I'm very glad to be given this opportunity to come and talk about the man we all held in very high regards.
That's true.
Sir Dawda Kairaba Jarjuesey. To me, he's more than a president or a leader. He's a kind of a fatherly figure for me. I would say I spent more time with him than my own dad.
That's true.
Given what transpired and the time I had to spend with him and his family. I felt and they all welcomed me on board. Absolutely. As like a member of the family, and they treated me accordingly with both families and both wives and all the kids as well. So we're here to talk about him in person because they are close enough, and some of the things that's a public persona, and that's the private person as well, and how he tend to rationalize and deal with issues. So I'm here to share some of those experiences. Hopefully we can all gain something from them.
Hopefully we can all gain from something from it. But what really comes to you when you decided to join the army in 1985, if I'm right?
1985, when I joined I had, through my school days, I remember I read, even when I was going to school, the autobiography of Lord Mountbatten.
Okay.
You know, funny enough, and then especially his exploits probably in India and here, but more so I saw a kind of a nexus between the military and development.
Right.
And to the Navy, he did contribute a lot to certain infrastructural developments, especially when it comes to the transport area and communication. So I wasn't, then I came to have this feeling that the military is not only about the physical aspect of it, but there is certain things that you can add some value to the country. So that kind of gave me the encouragement to join the army. I had a scholarship before, I was given a scholarship to go and study economics, but I turned it down and I rather preferred to join the army. Based on what I read about Lord Mountbatten, of course, the Forgotten Soldier, that was a book by Kairaba in Germany. So I had a bit of, and of course we've had stories about the exploits of Gambians who went to the Second World War. We have one in Kauru, like Kauru Silla.
Okay.
So we used to have these people normally celebrating, and it's well celebrated in Kauru Janakunda when we have this remembrance days. So all those things are at the back of my mind.
So as your heroes, these were like your heroes, so exactly, this motivated you to join the army.
The army, yeah.
Right.
You can do, it's not only you can be an office-based worker, you can also join the army and then still serve your country.
Brilliant. Still serve your country. When you joined the army, did you make your way up to the ladder whereby you get to the point to become an ADC to the former president, the late Dawda Kairaba Jarjuesey?
Yes, I was, and when I joined was sometime by virtue of your results, like if you come as a high school product, with O levels and A levels, you have a potential to be an officer, an army officer. So you join first as a soldier, and then you have to go through your recruitment, basic recruitment, and then from there you have to apply to the officer cadet selection board, which you have to pass. So from 1985, when I finished my initial 6 months training, and then we were selected. I was earmarked even when I was a recruit. Officer. So then I become an cadet officer, then went on further training to be a commissioned officer in Pakistan, 1987. Then eventually I came back. I was at training school. That's where from the training school and Delta Company. Then from the Silver Jubilee, when I was attached as ADC to Her Royal Highness Princess Anne. Princess Anne, okay. Princess Anne as the ADC.
That was a visit to the Gambia.
To the Gambia, yeah.
Right.
For the Silver Jubilee 2 weeks period. And then from there, I understand I've been assessed. And then my former commander, Colonel Dawda, made the assessment that I would be suitable to serve the president.
But then it's also understood that you became the longest serving training officer within the Gambia Army. Is that right?
Yeah, I was as an officer cadet. Normally by tradition, when you're an officer cadet, you are attached to the training school.
Right, okay.
So it took me a long time before I went, almost like a year or so at the training school. You have to wait for the other people who went on training to come back before you could go. So I was there about a year with the training school, with the British Army training team. Then when it was my time to come and go, then I went to Pakistan with Malika Gomez, and then we came back, and then I was Delta Company. I was brought back again by Pagay because he was impressed about my results.
Okay.
And then, of course, and the performance as well. So he felt it necessary to repost me back to the training school again. And so that was where I was picked up by Colonel Dawda, posted to the State House.
We will come to that point. Just coming back to you, sir, Mr. Jarjuesey, on regards to the explanation that you were given, because this is quite interesting. You've got something that Gambian people wants to know, that the time that you served under the leadership of the late Dawda Kairaba Jarjuesey. I will still leave you to go on. But if I was to ask you one question, how was the atmosphere knowing the old man, how they talked about him the other day in the memorial service, how was the atmosphere working under him?
I can say, and I've worked in various places and circumstances, but I've never worked in such a congenial and safe and relaxed environment as I did during my time in the office of the president, which was officially from the period 1977 to 88 was when I worked directly on the Dawda Kairaba Jarjuesey. And I was there dealing with a broad range of domestic and international issues.
Right.
The work environment was really, nothing you say is perfect, but it was such that, I mean, you feel at home. There were staff and a good esprit de corps in the office. It was pleasant when you do something and you are happy that what you have done is appreciated, you know, at the end of the day. You have this self-fulfillment in delivering at the workplace. Incredible experience.
Incredible experience. We also found out through research that during your time serving under the former president, that the GDP of the country, which is the Gambia, was mainly income coming from exportation. So how did it work? Because being a very tiny country, the amount of money that we used to generate and the economic, the stability that was in the country, the manpower that was working on the JAWARA and the intellectuals that were there, how did you guys come together to serve that small tiny nation, which is our country, the Gambia? We'll take a short break and when we'll come back, we'll still carry on with this interview that we're having under the leadership of Interface Gambia TV. And of course, our great guest here, Sir Foday Saikouba Jarjuesey, and of course Lamin Gassama, who first served as the longest service training personnel in the Gambia Army, later become the ACD to former President JAWARA. We'll take a short break and we'll come back to you.
Imagine a private retreat buried deep in the forest. A special place to relax, recharge, and get in touch with our culture and nature. So go discover the smiling coast of Africa.
9 Interface TV. With us, the Gambia Chikau Chikanam Rek.
Yo, this one for a blessed Gambia. The more we work together, the more we celebrate. The more we come together, the more we celebrate. Come on, let's get together. There's a place I love to be. The Gambia, the Gambia. Fun and sun right by the beach. The Gambia, the Gambia. All this love, come share with me. The Gambia, the Gambia. Land of peace and prosperity. The Gambia, the Gambia. It's the only feeling that can make you strong. This is where you and I belong. Dance to the rhythm of the beautiful song. Come on.
Welcome back to Views of Interface Gambia. Like I say, I'm your presenter, Lamin Jama of the JAWARA Show. Today on this special show here about the late Dawda Kairaba Jarjuesey, Sir Dawda Kairaba Jarjuesey, the founding father of Gambian democracy, and of course, the father of peace and stability in that small country called the Smiling Coast of Africa. And of course, the reason why it's called the Smiling Coast of Africa is because of the 3 decades that JAWARA has served as a very democratic leader in the sub-region of Africa. Today with me, I've got Mr. Foday Saikouba Jarjuesey, who has served, like I said, as a permanent secretary on the Works and Communication and various government departments. And indeed, I've got Mr. Lamin Gassama, well known for his honesty and loyalty to the Gambia government during the time of President Jawara, and the intelligence that he's got, you know, being an ADC to the former president until he was outstepped in that coup d'etat in 1994. I'll come back to Mr. Jarjuesey, sir.
Well, if you had allowed me to continue.
Please, sir.
Yeah. Because what happened was that
yeah.
when the Gambia became independent in 1965, several welcomed the news both at home and abroad. However, at the same time, others expressed doubts and skepticism about the country's ability to survive as a viable independent state because of its small size, paucity of economic resources, and lack of trained, educated civil service, among other factors. I think this is what...
Yes, this will prompt my question, yeah.
A study was even carried out about a possible merger with Senegal. And as I said, but the most hilarious reaction came in a book entitled Enter Gambia, The Birth of an Improbable Nation by Barclay Rice.
Barclay Rice.
It was a caricature.
When you say it was a caricature, in which way do you mean it was a caricature?
It was a caricature because the language in it was hilarious, and he was sort of mocking us about the way we speak English. And who is poor and who is rich, and he made references to Alhaji and various traders, as well as people involved in public life.
Okay.
But for Barclay Rice, any character he talks about in the Gambia, he makes a joke about him.
About the person, okay. All right.
That was, it was to all intents and purposes.
I'll leave you to carry on with this beautiful tribute that you've got about the late President Jawara, and then later we can have this general discussion, please. Yeah. Carry on, sir.
Yeah, as I said, my time working directly under Sir Dawda Jawara was for a period of 11.5 years. And this is why after his passing, I was contacted and interviewed by several media channels for my reaction. My response and participation in these interviews, plus this written submission, jointly constitute my tribute to our first president and founder of modern Gambia, Sir Dawda Kairaba Jawara. At this juncture, however, I think it is pertinent and instructive to ask ourselves what Sir Dawda's reaction was to the doom and gloom merchants about the future of the nascent country he led to independence. The answer was simple. He hit the ground running by strengthening existing institutions and creating new ones across the board for the administration, management, and development of the country. Starting with the three key arms of government, the executive, the legislature, and the judiciary, under a new political dispensation alongside the independence constitution, a fully fledged government emerged with collective cabinet responsibility, new ministries, and diplomatic representation abroad at both bilateral and multilateral levels. The country went ahead to take its rightful place in the international community as a member of the Commonwealth, the United Nations, the Bretton Woods institutions, that's the World Bank, and the International Monetary Fund, and others, regional and sub-regional organizations, including the then Organization of African Unity, now the AU, and crucially setting up joint institutions with Senegal, beginning with the Senegal-Gambia Secretariat. By 1970, Sir Dawda had completed the country's political development journey when we became a republic on 24th April that year.
1970, that's right.
At home, the launching and successful implementation of 2 national development plans by Sir Dawda's government following his creation and establishment of the Ministry of Economic Planning and Industrial Development, marked the beginning of a new approach to policy formulation, monitoring and implementation, full of freshness and creativity, boldness and vision, as well as political will, leadership and direction. The outcome was positive and rewarding. Every single sector, especially agriculture, in the production of our main cash and staple food crops, groundnuts and rice respectively, great progress ensued. The Jahari Pachar Rice Development Project added a new dimension to irrigation agriculture and demonstrated a great effort and good example towards the realization of self-sufficiency in our main staple food, rice. Unfortunately, this still eludes us. We have a long way to go. Other productive sectors of the economy, including fisheries and water resources, and the environment, tourism, and related industries, health and social welfare and allied services, education, youth, sports and culture, infrastructure development, and the preventative maintenance of government's vital assets all receive attention. To address gender inequality and usher in gender balance, the Women's Bureau was set up together with its executive arm, the National Women's Council, to ensure women's full participation in the socio-economic and political development of the country. I was very involved in this, and Sir Dawda brought them and put them in #1 Marina as their office.
That's right.
So you can see the measure of importance he attached to that. In his own area of veterinary science, President JAWARA gave us the International Parotororan Center, a sub-regional research institution for regional cooperation on livestock-based agricultural research for development, with offices at Kerseri and fields at Sololo near Bansan in 1982. The project, which was to cover 4 West African countries, was for the productivity of Trypanothoran Dama cattle to be kept under traditional management. It's fantastic if you go to Sololo at the time and see the cattle grazing along the river on the escarpment. And this was done with the help of his former professor, Professor Ian McIntyre. Some of us know about, I think you remember Professor McIntyre. Fundamentally, government put in place a human resources development and capacity building initiative through the Civil Service Reform and Training Program under the Personnel Management Office, and a named dedicated minister for the civil service, amidst a more streamlined, effective and efficient civil service, well managed, well remunerated, more professional and therefore even better. Good governance, best and good practice became and remain the guiding principles. 2 institutions, the Management Development Institute and the Gambia Technical Training Institute, laid the foundation for an enhanced civil service and technical training. It has been said by many at the time that our civil service was the best in Africa. Examples abound, but suffice it to say this was the case. No surprises here, because in all this we must always remember that Sir Dawda himself was a professional civil servant before he became a politician.
That's true.
Critically and crucially, he himself held the portfolio. What a strong foundation to build on for the professionalism and success of the Gambia civil service under President JAWARA. A great believer and exponent of the civil service from the word go, he upheld the independence and integrity of the service and saw it for what it was meant to be, the machinery and the engine room of government, tasked with, under the leadership and direction of ministers, policy formulation, monitoring and implementation to deliver the government's policies and programs in an effective, efficient and business-like manner. He never interfered in its day-to-day activities and strictly adhered to the provisions of the Public Service Commission regulations and general orders, as well as the Judicial Service Commission rules and regulations and the Foreign Service rules and regulations. Even in the exercise of his executive powers, in appointments to certain positions like that of permanent secretary made under section 1141 of the Constitution at the time. He studiously and strictly adhered to seeking and obtaining the concurrence of the Public Service Commission. Maybe a formality, but an important one all the same. Here was a president with executive powers and so many pressing matters of state, paying attention to fine detail, a key quality and requirement for leadership. Therefore, when Sir Dawda is advised against a certain line of action because it contravenes the Constitution or any other laws of the Gambia, he recognizes it and accepts it. What he did was to instruct that other options and possibilities be explored to ensure the process is lawful, not illegal. No civil servant can or should be forced or compelled to carry out illegal instructions. I say this because I have been in such situations before. Accordingly, I do not and cannot understand the contrary situation that transpired since Sir Dawda's departure. And he never asked or instructed for a job to be given to anybody, including members of his wider and close family, as far as I am aware during my time in government. I say this because I know it for a fact, and this includes even his children who, when they raise job possibilities with him as any son or daughter would do with a parent, they get a straightforward answer. You know, you have to apply in the normal way. I challenge anybody who says this was not the case. Yet when it came to supporting Gambians in job applications to international organizations, the effort and instructions from President JAWARA were unmistakably and abundantly clear to ensure that the application gets full and timely support. Again, I know, and I was involved in some of them in the course of my official duties. Similarly, to the best of my knowledge, Sir Dawda never put his finger in the national till. He was always strict and conscious of the absolute need to protect public funds. I can think of several examples, most appropriately during the budget session briefings and discussions with us before Cabinet. One example mentioned recently was his personal control of the use of the telephone in the household, which I know a lot about. Few other people knew, but sadly some of them have passed away. All I would say is that the matter ended decisively under Sir Dawda's instruction. For me, what happened shall remain a moot point for the time being. In typical civil service style, the instruction was given to the Secretary General, but the actual action was taken by me. Yet again, as always, he showed by example firmness in the protection of the public purse. It is therefore laughable to hear him being wrongly accused of rampant corruption by so-called soldiers with a difference who, following their treason, which remains unpunished to date, instantly proceeded to establish institutionalized rampant corruption on an industrial scale in the establishment of the worst murderous republic of kleptocracy amidst the stomach-churning evidence and revelations in the report of the Janet Commission in the history of our country and arguably anywhere else in the world in contemporary times. Never to forget the gruesome torture and death trail they left behind in their wake. When Sir Dawda abolished the death penalty, they reinstated it, but even there continued to kill extrajudicially without due process. Thanks to the macabre evidence so far emerging from the Truth, Reconciliation and Reparation Commission, and painfully even more, all of us now know the location of the killing fields of the Gambia. Bizarrely, even including a hospital, a place of health and care provision. There were toxic dark days in the history. These were toxic dark days in the history of the Gambia, as we descended into the bottom of the cesspit and the political landscape of the country turned into an asylum controlled by the lunatics themselves.
controlled by the lunatics themselves. We will take a short break again. This is quite interesting, sir. We'll take a short break, and then when we come back, we'll continue from where he stopped by controlling of the lunatics with our Gambia and, of course, the Republic of that beautiful country called the Smiling Coast of the Gambia. Thank you very much.
Imagine a private retreat buried deep in the forest. A special place to relax, recharge, and get in touch with our culture and nature. So go discover the smiling coast of Africa.
9 Interface TV. With us, the Gambia Chikau Chikanam Rek.
Yo, this one for a blessed Gambia. The more we work together, the more we celebrate. The more we come together, the more we celebrate. So come on, let's get together. There's a place I love to be. The Gambia, the Gambia. Fun and sun right by the beach. The Gambia, the Gambia. All this love, come share with me. The Gambia, the Gambia. Land of peace and prosperity. The Gambia, the Gambia. It's the only feeling that can make you strong. This is where you and I belong. Dance to the rhythm of the beautiful song. Come on.
There you go.
Yeah. Welcome back on Interface Gambia TV. I'm your presenter, Lamin Jami, on this special Jollof show today. I'm with Mr. Jarjuesey, and of course, I've got Mr. Gassama with me here. Mr. Jarjuesey, please carry on from where you stopped, sir.
Yes, I was talking about lunatics in the country of the asylum. But the effect was striking. And to myself, what do I say? Jami without responsibility. The prerogative of the eunuch throughout the ages. We are all acutely aware that the essence of this occasion is to mourn the sad passing of President Dawda Kairaba and to celebrate his life, times and achievements. But in doing so, we must put everything in context to enable us to extricate the facts, bring out some uncomfortable truths. Hence my remarks a few moments ago. Not to do so will only lead to confusion, prevarication, and obfuscation. On the contrary, we need to clarify beyond peradventure for the benefit of all of us. So I absolutely make no apologies for the said remarks. Now, as Dawda will have it, let's proceed with some optimism and positivity. The creation of the public enterprises under the Divestiture and Rationalization Program, on which Dawda spent enormous amount of time and energy in spreading socio-economic and political development and prosperity in the Gambia, and to ensure the benefits were evenly spread as much as possible across the country, was groundbreaking. In addition to the sectors already mentioned, this ushered in another new initiative and added impetus to socio-economic development under President JAWARA. The Gambia Produce Marketing Board, the Gambia Ports Authority, the Gambia Telecommunication Company, the Gambia Civil Aviation Authority, the Public Transport Corporation, the Gambia Utilities Corporation, now NAWEC, the Social Security and Finance Corporation, and others, under the supervision of the National Investment Board, itself under the office of the President, became key arm's-length statutory institutions and solid tools in Dawda's development armor, with their own boards of directors under designated ministries, paying dividends to government under the performance contracts, and with the ability and authority to pay bonuses to their own staff as appropriate. The parastatals became the commanding heights of the Gambian economy. Like the rest of the economy, they too were vandalized, looted and destroyed beyond recognition by the military, in civilian clothes. This was the age of civilization by military dictators in Africa to get into the good books of the West. Beyond the domestic agenda and returning to wider issues and areas, Dawda grew to become a giant international statesman and a major global figure in the sub-region, the rest of Africa, and on the world stage. As a founder member and a signatory to ECOWAS, he embraced with resilience all well-meaning organizations in the sub-region, including the West African Rice Development Association, the Committee for Drought Control in the Sahel, and others. Most important among them, the Organization for the Integrated Development of the Gambia River Basin and the Senegambia Confederation, which Dawda saw as our contribution towards sub-regional integration and African unity. We've witnessed the creation and end of the Confederation, but who knows what will happen next, depending on the desire and political will. And encouragingly, we've recently witnessed the realization and fulfillment of one of the objectives of the two countries, the construction and commissioning of the Senegambia Bridge. It was timely and fitting that Dawda witnessed this unique historic moment because he was involved in every form from the word go, as we have seen in images from the archives while mourning his passing and celebrating his life and achievements. In fact, it would not be outlandish or out of place to place on record and reminding ourselves of Dawda's vision, keen interest and realistic approach to the entire process of this project. In response to environmental and related concerns raised by President Jacques Delors and Vice President Nathalie when we visited one of the major partners, the European Union, in 1987, about the environmental effect of the construction of a bridge barrage at Yelitanda Bambatenda regarding flooding 24,000 hectares of land and the health implications, plus the impact of the river regime itself, flowing from its upper reaches downstream, endangering the wildlife as well as the fauna and flora. He acknowledged their concerns. This was nothing new to Dawda and was essentially a restatement of the contents of the Banjul Declaration, which received international acclaim. Dawda was far ahead on environmental issues and the topical and seminal concern on climate change and global warming. Although we've already mentioned the sister Republic of Senegal, which surrounds the entire country except on the Atlantic, our relationship with that country reminds us of the special relationship between the UK and the US after the Second World War. In the case of the Gambia and Senegal, however, the special relationship has always been there because it is based on the recognition of two countries bonded by blood, history, and geography. There couldn't be a better expression or explanation. And in addition to living in the same geographical entity and belonging to the same ethnic groups across both countries, the level of intermarriage remains unquantifiable and further reinforces the continued relationship as normal as it has always been from time immemorial. These values and traditions have always been the bedrock of President Jawara's policy. Thus, geography, the past, present, and future are the glue which will always, side by side and intertwined and inextricably linked, keep the two countries together ad infinitum. We cannot see, project, or conceive Senegal-Gambian relations in any other trajectory. Hence, the series of treaties and agreements concluded, and binding our two nations together, ranging from the agreement setting of the Senegal-Gambia Secretariat and up to the creation of an establishment of the Senegambia Confederation. A lot has happened to date, but I think two significant events need special mention: the abortive coup of 1981 and the impasse following the December 2016 presidential elections, which Jammeh lost, accepted defeat, congratulated Barrow, and then did the mother of all U-turns by rejecting the results and refusing to go until ejected by ECOWAS with Senegal at the forefront. However, it was 1981 which concerned Jawara, and even though he was out of the country, he dealt with it with political savvy, diplomatic skill, toughness, and characteristic bravery and courage. With his country and people under attack by bandits and murderers from home, also under external influence, in the name of a coup, and his own family kidnapped for days. Giving up his country and people was never contemplated or even considered by President Jawara as an option. This was a pivotal and defining moment, not only for the president, but also for the entire Gambian nation, as we stood at the crossroads of history. The reaction was typical in a political and diplomatic sleight of hand. Sir Dawda Kairaba Jarjuesey responded to immediacy with immediacy by invoking the 1967 Senegal-Gambian Treaty on Mutual Defense to quell the insurgency. The aftermath, just like the episode itself, was not pleasant and ended in loss of lives, arrests, and long periods of detention and trials. But there was no summary justice in the form of extrajudicial executions, as the world has witnessed in other countries in such similar situations. Those involved were dealt with in accordance with the law. Some of those convicted and sentenced were granted presidential pardons before the end of their terms, and through their human rights were respected, and all throughout their human rights were respected and upheld. In short, this was vintage Jawara at his best in moments of adversity. To quote Sir Winston Churchill, in defeat, defiance; in victory, magnanimity.
Thank you very much, Mr. Jarjuesey. Now, if I just come to you, Mr. Gassama, please. I know that's quite a length of speech there by Mr. Jarjuesey, quite interesting about the former President Dawda Kairaba Jawara. Indeed, a great pleasure to have you here today. So you spoke a length, the achievements that this founding father of the Gambia democracy and Gambia as a whole, who took Gambia to a next level when it comes to the international level. But if I might just come back to you, Mr. Gassama, in terms of the recommendation from Ndaunjai to become an ADC to President Jawara, how did you take the job when it comes to you at first?
The background for it was a bit of a surprise to me because funny enough, I was charged because I never had a charge sitting in the army out of indiscipline. But on this particular occasion, there are a group of officers we kind of protested. We thought there was something going wrong probably within our senior officers, that they were kind of flouting the rules.
Okay.
So we thought the best way for us also to do it was to follow their footsteps, and then we'll get charged, and then we go before the command, and then lodge our complaint, because we couldn't complain to stop this particular act being done. Which act that lead to that protest? We have an emergency. Right. When we have an emergency, everybody's supposed to stay in barracks. Nobody's supposed to go. But we'll find some officers will flout the rules, and then by virtue of their seniority, they can just walk out and come back when we are in a state of emergency. Right. So we agreed as young officers, of course. We said, okay, if they do it, now we also do it. So, but we could charge. So we are taken in front of the command. Of course, in the army, if you do something wrong, two wrongs cannot do it right. Absolutely. Yeah. So we still be hammered, and then of course our point was taken on board. And if you see, if you can contrast what happened to after the following the coup, how people reacted and how we as professionals reacted. We will come to that because that's a very important point, talking about the coup. I'll just let you carry on. So we went down there, and then of course we got our reprimand for following suit, for doing the same wrong thing. But what was the wrong thing that you read that prompted you guys to protest against the law? Basically, the rules are categorical. Nobody can break it. If you say we are confined to barracks by virtue of an emergency situation that the country may face a potential invasion from a rebellion or something like that, like coup elements around the country. Absolutely. We're supposed to stay in barracks. So nobody's meant to leave.
Whether being senior or junior.
Exactly.
Right.
When once you are deployed, you're not supposed to go out. But some took it upon themselves. They can go out and come back. And we felt aggrieved that that's not be. So a couple of few of us said, no, this is wrong. We have to put a stop to this. So the only stop we can do it also, we follow suit. We know we are the junior ones. We'll be charged. And then we went before the adjutant. And then, we were accordingly charged and the reprimand, but the actual offense stopped.
Right.
Of course, the senior officers will not be punished in our presence, but the rest assured the command would have dealt with in a different...
And be followed by each and every one.
Yes, like the way we were also followed.
Yeah, but going back, sorry to interrupt you there, but going back, was this done before the recommendation of Mr. Njai to be your appointment This was after?
After, so I already had this charge sheet within my file, and then I remember at the time one of his close associates told me, I didn't react to it. If anything, we just buckle down, bend our head and work hard.
And just,
So we just thought, to me, it's nothing. It's something in the army. When you do something bad, you expect to be
dealt with.
So I wouldn't have to take that in hard and then started fighting left, right, and center. It's unfair. I've been doing this because of that. No, I knew what I was doing was wrong. I was dealt with, and I still buckled down to work double my efforts than before, and then I worked hard. So that's why I said even the ADC thing came as a surprise, because I was thinking that you want somebody who is having even spotless, or even got a charge sheet. But then the command understood that, one, what we are doing was wrong, we got charged for it, but still he appreciated the effort I was doing, both discipline, in terms of discipline and application with the soldiers, and then found it necessary that they had the right character. And then we are told to be posted as an
ADC. To have the right character to be posted as an ADC. What were your job roles as an ADC to the head of state?
As an ADC, you are like a personal aide to the, you're not a bodyguard, because the guards are there. So you are the last port of call before anybody.
To the president.
To the president. So you are virtually the closest aide. Everybody comes through you to the president who will be announcing him, and then of course, if there's any security, regarding his movement as well, you'll be the ADC and the chief of protocol and then the head of the presidential guards.
Absolutely.
So you will always be informing them, this is what the president wants to do, or this is what he is expecting to, this number of visitors coming. Accordingly, they can make the various security in the house.
So on a daily basis, you will have to know the ins and outs of the visiting of the president during that time.
Absolutely.
So
from the time he steps in the office until the time he steps out of office.
Brilliant. And then you served as an ADC to the president from 1990 to 1994, if I'm correct. That including traveling and everything. And his security as well. Were you briefed, or do you have any acknowledgement of any security matters whilst as an ADC to the president?
Yeah, I will be, like I said, the physical security, the guards are responsible. But if there are any concerns, that I see, because I come from the army, in that, like I once mentioned, I found myself in no man's land, that I don't have a constituency in terms of troops to command, under my command. So I will relay it to either, if it's intelligence-led thing, Dabo Marina is there, which is a component of the presidential guard plainclothes security, or I will address it to the presidential guard commander if it's to do with the physical security.
Right.
So I had a very good, harmonious relationship, working relationship with them, to the level that some people felt that they need their training is probably not up to standard vis-a-vis the possible potential threats they envisage coming, like if it's from the army, they will approach me. So will approach me, and then through Jaune, and then who was the commander, regarding how ill-armed they were, or how, so in some of them, like Almami Bojanko, how ill-trained they were.
Within the State House. And these were State House personnel, they were working inside the State House.
They think that I may have a kind of influence to pass it through the right channel so that they can get a better training, because everybody's perceiving them to be the elite unit, when they themselves know that they are not.
Right, interesting.
Yeah, so in those cases, I will try to, as best as possible, to see how best I can be of help to them.
To have those trainings. Now, a very important question that I'm going to ask you. At any given point, was there any rumors in regards to coup d'etats towards the former president?
Well, rumors was never ending during Sadauda's time. Rumors was never ending. Always rumors. At one time, I remember it was Midifano store, and then the rumors was going to be an attempt on his life. I think I did mention this in the TRC.
Okay.
Yeah, but then fingers were pointing at Yaya.
The former president Yaya Jammeh.
President Yaya Jammeh.
Okay.
And then I understand also the reason why it was because he was reported to have been corresponding with Kukwai. I understand it was the reason why he was even removed from State House, where he used to be an outrider, motorcycle outrider, escort for the president.
Okay.
He was removed from the president and then back to the military police unit of the Zanam. So I couldn't understand if he was a potential threat, why he would even be allowed, to accompany the president on such a trip. But then that was beyond me.
So then that will lead me to my next question, which I'm sure you were expecting, which is why was he not investigated properly in regards to if he's been a potential threat to the president? Why was he not investigated?
Yeah, again, it baffles me at the time, but later on, as the whole thing unfolded, and I learned this from the late Daba Marena, like I said, who was a very senior NI official attached to the president. This where the whole plot thickens, as you say, and that those who were in the know, he was a tool for them.
Right.
Those who were in the know.
So if you say those who were in the know means people within
the state conspirators. Yeah. He was being used. Of course, later he turned it on his head. They used them instead, or how he kind of man a coup within a coup.
Yeah.
So yeah. Yes, that's my only reason why I could see him not being arrested at the time. And of course, he was able to consolidate. He's very clever. He was very able to consolidate his relationship with that same intelligence unit, reporting again on the so-called corruption of so-called senior officers. He seems to have problems with. Yeah, they will accompany him like on the weekends, come to report, at Sadauda, Officer X is doing this, Officer Y is doing that. Try to re-establish that closeness
within the presidency. So how was the president's relationship? Was he aware of this plot that was coming from Jammeh, or this attempted coup that Jammeh was behind? Was the president briefed about it?
Any attempted coup, he would have been informed. He was informed by the National Secret Advisor, or the Nigerian, and sometimes the PAM sector, Ahmed Bensouda, and sometimes the Secretary General. But his position is always, give me evidence. He was involved. Names were named to him. He knew about it. Sometimes his response was, look, if it is the will of God, it will happen. After all, it happens in Nigeria every time.
That's true.
It was his response. And then intelligence is not an exact science. With the benefit of hindsight, probably, like he himself said, he would have done certain things differently. Now that he knows what happened, but then hindsight is 20/20, as you say.
So would you say then there was been a failure in terms of security levels at the State House before this coup d'etat happened?
Complacency. There was a lot of complacency in handling intelligence. And of course, if that intelligence itself is involved, to me, what I come to connecting the dots, they themselves are complicit. So then again, you are fighting a losing battle.
Absolutely.
Because they're the ones who are coming to turn back and advise you, oh, this is fake, or this is not real. But if they themselves are party to it, it becomes difficult for you to be able to sift through it and see what is the reality and what is the false one.
How did you receive the news on the actual day of July 22nd, that Friday morning, that the JAWARA government was overthrown by the same person that's name has been mentioned before? as a potential threat to the president.
But at that time, we didn't even know whether it was him or not who was, because remember this took a few days before the whole thing unraveled as to who is in charge. So at the first instances, no particular name has been announced.
Right.
Like I said, it's a routine. As my part of my normal routine, just to get up from mile 7 and go to State House, be there before 8 o'clock, and pick him to office. He's never late in office. You know, he's never ever late. By 8 o'clock sharp, all the time we are in office. So I got dressed up, ceremonial uniform. We were expecting the new Chinese ambassador to present his letters of credence. You know, that morning
to the president.
Then we went to have guard of honor. You know. So that's why I got dressed in ceremonial. So I always used to joke, I left the country on ceremoniously in a ceremonial uniform. 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 Yeah. So that morning, so when I find the State House really quiet, that I thought it was all the guards, you know, because sometimes they'll withdraw some of them to go and prepare for the guard of honor, you know. So we just kind of walk into it. You know, that morning.
So there was nothing that was later, because the reason I'm asking that, you know, prior to that very Friday, there has already been information to the from the senior military officers that there were certain group that were plotting the coup d'etat, which has failed at the airport. Why were they not arrested and investigated before?
Exactly. That wasn't. That's why it wasn't reported to us as a failed coup
plot
or a plot or something like that, or a coup. If not the action, the action would have taken that particular night, you know. In terms of a potential coup or a potential problem, yet they didn't mention, and I was like my residence, when the former presidential guard, who became the commander in the Zanam camp, Turojane, informed me about a potential disturbance at the airport, and then they thought Biaya was leading this revolt, and then he put Alhaji Martin on him, surprisingly, to kind of be the guard or to watch over him, you know, in case anybody misbehaves, and they'll be dealt with on the ground. But that was that, you know, so there was no follow-up, you know. So as far as we are concerned, we knew nothing about the plot on the 21st or the one on the 22nd. Yeah, it was just as a minor misdemeanor, you know, a potential one. It never actually materialized, and it was handled at their level, you know. So that's why.
Because I think this is why one will say that there has been a failure and or possible inside work within the coup plotters and people working at the State House. Yeah. Because if such thing would happen in somewhere else, there will be an investigation to the letter. Yeah. Yeah. But
with the benefit of hindsight, now you can see, and from what I have heard other colleagues' testimonies, like that of Babakar Jeng and the others, you'll be able to piece together why, you know, if the core conspirators and those who were enabling them were all in this on the same page, why that information will not filter to the president. To the president. It's what transpired the day before.
Absolutely.
You know, so. If they are hell-bent upon it succeeded, as it eventually succeeded.
Thank you very much. We'll take a short break and we'll still come back to you. I'm your presenter, Lamin Jami, on the Jollof Show. Like I said, we've got a very special guest today, Mr. Jarjuesey, that spoke lengthily about the late President Dawda Kairaba Jarjuesey. And of course, a pleasure to have Mr. Gassama, former ACD to President JAWARA. We'll take a short break and we'll be back to you.
At the heart of the Gambian way of life is the village and family. We have a vibrant and diverse culture full of music, dance, art, and a love of life. It's all around you, and you can feel it too. From the river comes fire. It brings light to the forest, wealth to its people, and new life to this fertile land. The love of nature and culture, the beautiful sun and sea, a land of friendship and peace. Gambia has it all and more.
Yo, this one for a blessed Gambia. The more we
Imagine a private retreat buried deep in the forest. A special place to relax, recharge, and get in touch with our culture and nature. So go discover the smiling coast of Africa.
9 Interface TV. With us, the Gambia Chikau Chikanam Rek.
The more we celebrate, come on, let's get together. There's a place I love to be. The Gambia, the Gambia. Fun and sun right by the beach. The Gambia, the Gambia. All this love, come share with me. The Gambia, the Gambia. Land of peace and prosperity. The Gambia, the Gambia. It's the only feeling that can make you strong. This is where you and I belong. Dance to the rhythm of the beautiful song. Come on.
Welcome back on Interface Gambia TV. I'm your presenter, Lamin Jame of the Jollof Show. Still with my two guests here, Mr. Jarjuesey, who has served as a permanent secretary under Works and Communication and various ministry positions under the late Dawda Kairaba JAWARA, and of course, Modu Lamin Gassama, who has served as a senior member of the Gambia, longest training officer, and of course, a ADC to former President Dawda. Mr. Jarjuesey, if I might just come back to you, please, just to continue the testimony for Mr. JAWARA, please.
Thank you. I shall try to finish it quickly.
Thank you.
In the area of wider foreign policy, Dawda destroyed the world like a colossus. Never in the annals of modern political history has a head of state from such a tiny country, both geographically and population-wise, as well as economically limited, risen to become a huge international global figure on the world stage. But beyond in the wider international community, Dawda excel. I'm reminded of the Commonwealth publication, Small States in a Global Society. Thus, one of the first major planks of his foreign policy derived from his domestic agenda, but more specifically from his own character, belief, and vision for the upholding of democracy, the rule of law, and human rights within the context and framework of friendship with the world. The Pettinga Collegium on the Afro-European dialogue and all that. His tireless and relentless campaign for the promotion of human rights led to a series of high-level international meetings and conferences, culminating in the adoption of the African Charter for Human and People's Rights, the Banjul Charter, and the establishment of the Center for Democracy and Human Rights Studies, both located in the Gambia. At the level of the Commonwealth, even though Dawda himself was unable to attend the Commonwealth Heads of Government meeting, Melbourne 1981, due to pressing matters of state following the abortive coup in 1981, he gave clear instructions to the Gambian delegation led by Vice President Hassan Musa Kamara to propose the establishment of a small human rights unit in the Commonwealth Secretariat. This was accepted and agreed, and the contribution acknowledged, a remarkable achievement for the records as well as for future reference. Beyond the United Nations, the Commonwealth, the IMF, and the World Bank, and in addition to others I have already highlighted, Dawda pursued a truly inclusive and diverse foreign policy at both the bilateral and multilateral levels, unlimited to mere political and diplomatic matters, but embracing and combining technical, economic, and cultural cooperation with individual countries and the wider international donor community too. Political, diplomatic issues and economic cooperation were both sides of the same coin. And at the root of the policy was an impeccable ethical and moral dimension, dynamic, purposeful, and enduring. We all remember how Dawda took it upon himself to successfully negotiate peace between the Ivory Coast and Senegal when both countries were pitched against Guinea-Conakry in a relentless war of words, which escalated and degenerated into a complete breakdown in their relations. Dawda even brought Guinea into OMVG to further cement the peace between Senegal and Guinea, adding that this was logical and meaningful because the river Gambia rises from the Foday Highlands in Guinea and flows through all three countries, emptying into the Atlantic. There was the organization of the Islamic Conference and President Jawara's chairmanship of the Islamic Peace Committee, which helped bring an end to the Iran-Iraq war. As a man of peace, he made sure the Gambia, individually and collectively, through ECOMOG, which he chaired, also spearheaded bringing a peaceful resolution to the troubles in Liberia and Sierra Leone. At the human level, Dawda was a very kind, generous, and compassionate person, an epitome of humility and selflessness. But this should not be misinterpreted or taken for weakness. He never wavered in the wake of 1981. He remained strong with fortitude, determined not to give up on his country. He engaged the whole international community in the campaign for the restoration of democracy in the Gambia after 1994, working with members of parliament in the House of Commons and Lords, 2 Commonwealth Secretary Generals, the European Union and several others. Always very helpful, he made sure that he helped Gambian exiles to regularize their immigration status, writing and giving affidavit after affidavit and letters and statements in support of immigration and asylum applications. Several benefit and end up becoming British citizens. He did the same for exiles in other European countries and the United States of America. Thus, when we eventually come to chronicle the life and times of Dawda Kairaba Jawara, in addition to what he himself and others have already written, we cannot but restate and reinforce the conclusion that he was a huge international figure, a giant of a statesman with impeccable democratic and political pluralism credentials, a public-spirited and broad-minded person individually and collectively, a deeply conscious religious person with Friday prayers featuring permanently in his daily routine on that important Islamic day of the week, observing all the 5 pillars and other requirements of the faith, committed to peace, progress, and prosperity. Always fair, he was meticulous and thoroughly investigates to establish the truth if someone is reported to him before deciding and taking any action. He will deal with the politicians and the Secretary General with the civil servants in accordance with the law and established procedure. I know because for my part, I eventually lost count of the number of times I have been reported. Even though there have been some critical ones I will never forget. But for the time being, silence is golden because I have never been directly subject to any injustice by Dawda. So as we say our very long goodbye to you, sir, we say a big thank you for the immense contribution you have made towards shaping our lives and individually and collectively during your stewardship. It is now left to us to sustain and build on your enduring legacy, to ensure that peace, progress, and prosperity remain our guiding principles. And go well, Sir Dawda Kairaba Jawara, with a clear conscience and a clean sheet. Nobody can talk about huge amounts of money and assets siphoned off in your name, or buildings and lucrative properties in foreign countries in your name. Your hometown and birthplace remain a modest rural village. As far as I know, state funds were spent only on the rest house. The mosque was not built from state funds, and we know that. Relatively speaking, you were a poor man, and this makes your legacy a proud one for honesty and contentment. The rhetorical question is, which other head of state would in the Gambia or indeed the wider world be so categorized? Sir Dawda's passing has provided us, every single Gambian, a huge and urgent challenge as well as a unique moment for deep reflection, and I wish to share mine with you in the context of what happened. It is often said that you don't know what you wish for yourself. Those celebrating in 1994, please take note. Enough said. To repair 2 decades of deliberate, willful and wanton destruction is a gargantuan task which requires solid commitment to renewal. A Gambian renaissance to repair and reconstruct, and to retrieve our independence given to us by Dawda Kairaba Jawara and callously stolen from us on 22nd July 1994. It was a case of naked and brutal democratic, political, human rights, freedom, socio-political, economic robbery, the mother and father of all robberies in the history of our country. We moved from Kairaba to Koroba. The reparation will not be a short and easy journey, and in a manner speaking, already seems to be one fraught with turbulence and uncertainty. Most law-abiding Gambians who eschew crime, violence, greed, hatred, and all evils depicted in the images and deeds of Satan, Pharaoh, and Iblis, individually and collectively, should never have undergone such cruelty and barbarity from their own. Neither Dawda nor the people deserved such abomination as 1994. And what followed? The gentle and generous people of the Smiling Coast, known for their friendship with the world, will hopefully always remain proud and tolerant as your good self, their departed leader. Dawda, you've always kept a fine balance and had an infectious sense of humor. Your belief in and adherence to democratic politics remains the jewel in the crown of leadership and puts to shame all those who abuse and misuse their positions and powers to oppress and silence those whom they swore on oath to protect. As we reflect, we should all be honest, recognize and accept the fact that we must face recalcitrant reality, which simply is that it has been and continues to be the case that since Dawda left office in 1994, and I emphasize that, we have never been at ease with ourselves as a people and as a nation. Therefore, whatever interpretation or slant anybody gives these words, one thing is certain: they are pregnant with meaning. This is the key to paving the way to our reflection and renewal. Let us summon and unleash our collective energy and imagination to finish the unfinished business of Dawda Kairaba Jawara. Let us get going and do it for Dawda, for ourselves, for our children, and for future generations, and above all, for our country, the Gambia, our homeland. For Dawda, you have done your best, and that's it for you, as nobody can do more than his or her best. Before I conclude, I would like to take this opportunity to thank Mama Chilel for her love and care for Dawda during 51 years of loyal, committed and distinguished marriage, and to Mama Lady Njeme for her love and dedication too. We owe both bucket loads of thanks. My thanks also go to the organizations of this event and all those who gave their time to be present here today. We were all richer for knowing you, Dawda Kairaba Jawara. Sadly, we are now all poorer without you. A Jawaraless Gambia is an orphan, and we have all been orphaned with your going. You really burned your heart out for the Gambia, and may the Almighty Allah reward you abundantly with the highest place in Arjana. And thank you from the bottom of my heart.
Thank you very much, Mr. Jarjuesey. May the Lord bless you. That's very close, strong words there from Mr. Foday Saikouba Jarjuesey, that has served as a permanent secretary under the Works and Communication Department during the time of the late Dawda Kairaba Jawara. May the Lord have mercy on his soul and all the departed soul. We're still under talking about the memories of the late Dawda Kairaba Jawara. Like I keep on saying, the founding father of Gambian democracy. A great loss to the Gambia, indeed a great loss to Africa as a whole. A champion man for democracy, restoring democracy in so many countries, and involving in the restoration of democracy in Guinea-Bissau. We know of the Nero Vieira time, and Mr. Gassama will be very in good position to talk about that. But Mr. Gassama, if I may just ask you, in regards to the old man, during the time in the State House as an ADC, how was his relationship with you as the army personnel in there and all the colleagues that were working? Because I heard he had a great sense of humor.
Yes, he was. I think he wants you. He's the type of person who wants you to get used to him.
As a person, not as a president.
Not as a president. But at the same time, like I said, he can also be firm if you cross the line or you do something wrong.
That's right.
You know, he can change. It can change automatically. Those are kind of wisdom that you get by virtue of
absolutely,
and it's part of his personality as well. You know, so like I was mentioning the other day, you know, when he put a prank about
an April Fool.
An April Fool day, it never crossed my mind that the president would put such a thing.
So he literally April fooled you on the day of April Fool.
Yeah, because
First of
I was
April.
saying that this is an expensive one, you know.
Wow.
How am I going to explain to my army commander? I called them that the president is traveling.
At the very day?
At the very day, and then he told me he's traveling, I'm traveling this morning. I said, okay, I didn't even think that it was the 1st of April or something like that. So I informed Mr. Bob, I said, okay, I called the army, there has to be a guard of honor. I have to give them, enough notice.
Absolutely.
And then 12 hours, or I mean not even 12 hours, from the morning to 12 o'clock, about that, is that enough time? But anyway, an order is an order. So
yeah, absolutely.
And I call and I let them know, now I'm doing the preparations. And then, so after around, I had it at the back of my mind, but I dare not go and knock with a side. It's an April Fool.
Or what?
No, I couldn't. So until 12 o'clock, you know, he asked us to stand down. And till he passed, I could never bring myself
to terms with that.
So I wasn't an April Fool. You know, but I couldn't. But then that was that's the part that I was personally.
So that tells you, yeah.
The same relationship with the, like I said, with the staff, if you see with the stewards, you know, like I said, we're playing golf, and then we have mini golf course before in the state house there.
Right. Okay.
Whole golf course, and then we see this lightning struck one of the trees. And I was there with Abbas, and Abbas said, Sambero, you know, like a stone that came from the, and hit the tree, and it's buried seven notes in the seventh layer of the earth.
Wow.
And then he laughed and laughed. He said, hey, Abbas theory.
And the whole man was laughing.
Yeah, he was laughing. He said, that's Abbas theory. He said, Abbas, this electricity, you know, he said, the people with the knowledge, they said this electricity is not like a stone. He said, no, it is a stone.
So that's the relationship he had.
That's the kind of relationship he has.
Yeah. Because, I mean, I remember when I interviewed the other son the other day, Council, he mentioned that to me, that, you know, they did lose a father, but he was a friend to them as well.
Yeah, he was.
So,
at home, he is relaxed. With all of them, you wouldn't think he's a president. And with the cooks, with the stewards, you know, and with kids in particular. You see him playing with kids? No, you know,
amazing.
It's natural. Naturally down to earth, he can just play with any kids. And he won't allow anybody to touch his grandchildren.
Wow.
You know, he's playing with them in the garden. Yeah, that's the type of person he is. He has enough time, you know, to dedicate to the kids to play around with them.
And then also being the champion of democracy within not only Gambia, because, you know, we the Gambians, we only know what we knew or growing up as a kid, you know, which Mr. Jarjuesey will know much about it. He was very firm in terms of democracy within the sub-region as well, and involved. I think he was the first ECOMOG chairman as well.
Yes, and in the formation, like I once mentioned also because we had a whistle stop in tour President Babangida, his aircraft, you know, for using with Abbas Bundu. So we virtually will stop at all the airports, and most of these head of states will have those meetings at the height of the Liberian crisis. You know, try to build consensus to build this ECOMOG force. He was doing the task, you know, and like I said, he wasn't faced by any kind of intimidation or threat. You know,
because
we had several countries, in Togo, in Mali, in Abuja, in Cote d'Ivoire, you know, which he called the Lion's Den.
He then called Cote d'Ivoire the time of AFIB 1.
That was when he saw that everything is being directed from there, you know, for Charles Taylor.
So he knew the support was coming from AFIB 1, and later,
wherever he knew the support was coming, he would go there straight
and tackle the matter from there.
Straight away, yes. You know,
that's great.
In Mali, when Charles Taylor wouldn't sign the accords, and then he was informed that, or knew that it was Gaddafi, he asked a communication to be set up between him and Gaddafi. After a long conversation with Gaddafi, you know, from Gaddafi to Charles Taylor came and signed the accord.
So Charles decided, so that tells you, Mr. Jarjuesey, how strong the old man was when it comes to, facilitating or talking about democracy, trying to maintain peace in the sub-region in Africa. Not only that, but also, you mentioned about Iran and Iraq war. The other day someone mentioned that he was chosen to be the person to facilitate that, which most Gambians don't know, many Gambians don't even know.
No, he worked very, very, very hard on Iraq. And it's good because when that was happening, the Organization of the Islamic Conference was financing all his traveling around the world. And all the world. Because it was a very expensive venture.
Yeah, you could imagine.
He persisted and persisted until he achieved. He's a very, very, very patient person, And there is another example. I don't know whether people don't talk about it. Dawda and human rights are synonymous. And if you want to stop him or put a brick on his way to go where he wants to go with human rights and democracy, then I think that he'll be the stone and he'll be the egg. The whole government, Meronin 6 kilo. 6 kilo buntanyola, takitanyola.
Sisi kilo.
So he realized that Sekou Touré was trying to stand in his way, not only in the sub-region, but even at the OAU, about the African Charter for Human and People's Rights. Because Manju being Manju, he termed that as interference in other countries' internal affairs. And he was the cause why we had the word, it was human rights. And Manju, he said human and people's rights. He say what? And parade people, everything, he must include people.
People to come out.
Human and people's rights, no problem with Dawda. He's a great negotiator and he compromises and all the rest of it. But he would never allow anybody to stand in his way there. And he will talk about it until then he would laugh and say, Manju, this is what
So he then later enjoy when the outcomes of peace has just been prevailed. Yeah. So he loves that.
He really enjoys his achievement. I mean, I remember Dawda when he delivered this speech. I think it was in May of that year at Addis Ababa at the Economic Commission for Africa there. But they were celebrating the 25th anniversary of the ADB. And he gave this speech, but after this speech and the adulation and everything, you should listen to officers, because he's a politician, he's busy, he goes with his security and all the rest of it. But people were coming, what they were telling us, talking to me, talking to Langley, and one of the officers came to me, he said, you people must be the proudest African civil servants in your life, that you can have a president, who can come and stand here and do what he said. And it was after that I knew that they were trying to get somebody to do that particular event.
Okay.
And they consulted a lot of African presidents, and they were all sort of shortlisted. And they came to choose him to go and deliver that keynote address.
Which tells us the reason why we say that Gambia has lost the champion and the founding father of democracy. Yes, Mr. Gassama, you were about to say something.
He recognizes and respects individual sovereignty. That's where all his democratic approach comes from, that you have a freedom of choice, to do what you want, to say what you want, with respect. He may beg to differ from you.
Absolutely.
And he even respects you more so if you will say, what do you think? He never wants to impose his opponent on you. He will say his opinions on you. He will always ask you what you think. He wants you to express yourself, and he will respect your opinion. His adversaries, like I said, SM Diba used to come to the office.
Sirif Mustafa Diba.
SM Diba, SM Musa Kamara. If they have some divergent views they want to express, They will come to the office.
And these were oppositions to his government.
To his government.
That's
they
right.
will come and they will present what they, and after that they'll sit down and chat for a few minutes and they get up and go.
That's true.
You wouldn't think that this is actual, but you don't see an opposition as an enemy.
Absolutely.
Never. That word enemy doesn't come into his vocabulary. You respect your opinion, you have a different view. That's all it is.
As much as is the interest of the country.
Yeah.
That's true.
Exactly, because all of you have the same, consensus about what you want to go do for the country. You may have different methods or ways or philosophy about attaining the same objective, but it doesn't see you as an enemy. Absolutely not.
Thank you very much, Mr. Gassama. Unfortunately, that has brought us to the end of this special show today in memory of the late Sir Dawda Kairaba Jarjuesey, the founding father of Gambian democracy, and of course, a champion to democracy within the sub-region. I'll have to take this great opportunity on behalf of Interface Gambia TV and my very self to thank Mr. Foday Saikouba Jarjuesey, the former permanent secretary from Works and Communication during the time of Sir Dawda Kairaba Jarjuesey, and numerous positions as well. And of course, I will thank you, Mr. Gassama, Mamadou Lamin Gassama, the former ADC to JAWARA until he's been ousted by the former juntas in 1994 coup d'etat. I'll say that brings us to the end of this special show here. I'm the presenter Lamin Jame. Thank you very much for watching Interface Gambia TV. Thank you.
Je vous présente Alhaji TV Media Group, disponible en téléchargement sur Apple Store et Play Store. Une fois ouverte, vous pouvez vous abonner en cliquant sur Inscription.